Hello. Happy Friday. Well, I'll do my usual blather to fill up the moments before I have live viewers, but if you are watching this and um, it's not during the live feed, then hello to you. And I actually don't know if I'm going to get any viewers today because it's later than my usual thing. However, it has been a week. I have been up to my eyeballs trying to deal with, oh gosh, it has been a wild ride around here. There's been a bunch of household stuff, and I have been trying to get this anthology rodeo together. I have ducks, and they're not in a row, they're migrating somewhere. So, hello, Stephen. Yes, you are first. And at least, hopefully, you can hear me. If you cannot hear me, say something in the chat. But I think I fixed the sound issue. There's a controller on the microphone itself, and that had gotten turned all the way down. Anyhow, there were no complaints about the sound while I was doing a podcast recording with the panel yesterday. So I'm hoping, since I haven't touched the microphone since, that it is working. Technical issues aside, I was just telling Sanford that I need to turn my desk 90 degrees because we have been unable to figure out a place for me to do this outside of our bedroom / office. And if I turn my desk 90 degrees, you won't be looking at the bed, which is not made. I did say it's been a week. and Sanford's monitor, which is the black rectangle over my shoulder, and he has stepped out for a moment. So when he stepped out, he left the cat locked in our room, and the dog is outside of our room and would like to come in. So if you hear funny noises, let's see here. It's too long. Let me sum up. The anthology is coming along. It's scheduled to be published tomorrow. If it's published tomorrow, it will be late in the day, and probably not until Sunday. I still have an author with technical difficulties getting logged into PubShare, and I have an author that, there's a Stephen King story where a fan ties up an author and kidnaps them and threatens them with horrible things if they don't write a book. Yeah, we're at that stage. I'd say I know where he lives, but I don't. So he's safe enough as long as he delivers that story by tonight. He's not going to be watching this. He's supposed to be writing. He shouldn't be watching this. So after I'm done with this, I'm going to be making a phone call so that I can help the author who has technical difficulties. PubShare is a really interesting premise. I was introduced to it a couple of years ago. I want to say in 2016 or 2017. It was originally called Bundle Rabbit, and it's now called PubShare, and it's run by a very nice gentleman named Chuck, who is so helpful. I have had fantastic customer service. And what he enables me to do is to be able to run something like these anthologies, and I don't have to worry about the accounting. So that is one thing off my plate. And yes, there's a percentage that goes to PubShare if I do it this way. But honestly, it is worth that for me to pay out so that I don't have to deal with trying to figure out everybody's royalties and write checks or PayPal or whatever. It's all not on my plate. And I was asked yesterday when I was doing the podcast interview if I would ever do another one of these. And I said not in a year when I'm going to move and change jobs twice and be separated from my husband for 8 months, which isn't really an answer, but the only reason I can think to do it again would be to have if I wound up with another passion project like this one. It honestly hasn't been awful. I have been very light with the editing touch on these stories because I got some really good stories, and there's Sanford to say hello. I got really good stories submitted for this anthology, and I was torn between wanting to try and edit and also wanting to keep a very light touch so that I kept authorial voices intact. So in the end, what I did for editing was largely some minor spell-proof spell checking, grammar, and a little bit of sentence restructure. There really wasn't any serious story work that needed to be done with any of the stories that were sent to me. And, I mean, it's an interesting collection of stories. I'm looking forward to seeing what the reaction is to it. And, yeah, Sanford is glad to have made it down here safely, too. And he went to the barber today, so he's looking much more kempt than he was when he got down here. He got down here and he was tired and his hair was wild, and I was a little concerned about what he'd been doing to neglect himself for the last several months. Back to the anthology, though. I'm really looking forward to having this out, and hopefully it will be out this weekend. I had said it was going to be out by tomorrow, but given that we have an author with technical difficulties, which may or may not be resolved today, and another author who has promised me a story by bedtime and didn't tell me what his bedtime was, we'll see. So, as the owner, chief potwasher, and factotum for Sanderson Studios, I made an executive decision earlier this week. I spent a good chunk of money, more than I really wanted to spend, but it is what it is, to buy vellum and what's necessary in order to use vellum, which was a used Mac laptop, because vellum doesn't do Windows, period, end. And I have struggled enough with trying to get books formatted fully through using Word and trying to use Affinity Publisher, I'll come back to that shortly, that I decided that it was worth spending about $500, and that's between the computer and the software to run vellum. In theory, once I have everything formatted, it should be really simple. I'm sure there's a bit of a learning curve, and that's what I'm doing tonight after I get off from talking to all of y'all. I almost canceled the live stream for tonight because I knew that I really needed to be working on that. But on the other hand, it's been a long week, and this is a moment to try and just kind of relax. Yes, Mom, it is a business expense, and it came out of the business account. So it's part of operating expenses. And I had been toying with the idea of doing it for several months. Getting the anthology formatted was what got me to finally just pull the trigger and do it. We'll see what the learning curve is like. I will probably wind up doing a Mad Genius post about some of the technical ins and outs of it. I had mentioned Affinity Publisher a few minutes ago, and that's an interesting piece of software. It's considerably cheaper, first of all. If you get it on sale, it runs about $25. I am not sure let me back up a little bit. It is the equivalent of Adobe InDesign, which I have a little bit of experience with. And InDesign has a really steep learning curve. I don't think I ever completely figured out the ins and outs of it during the time I was using it. Affinity Publisher I actually find a little more intuitive to work with than InDesign was. So of the two of them, I would recommend Affinity Publisher unless you're in some strange situation where you are absolutely required to use InDesign, and if so, I'm sorry. I have completely gone away from all Adobe projects and I won't go back, not willingly. It's less expensive. The Affinity Suite, I have all three sets now, Photo, Publisher, and Designer, and you can actually toggle back and forth in between them with just the click of an icon inside the programs. They're really, really well designed. So Affinity Publisher is what I've been using to lay out the coloring books and the children's books with. And for that, it really is an easy, smooth, I'm going to just say intuitive. I'm figuring that out without really having to dig up tutorials and go by steps. It's pretty easy to figure out how to do that and to lay out your bleeds and your margins. When I did Task Force Chewini, I was actually working into it. I did the initial layout with the text, and then I wound up changing the initial layout as I went. Because you can see it, it lets you do the full page spread, so the side by side, so you can see what's going to be in the book. And it let me see where I needed to do illustrations still in that particular case, because I had the sit reps that Law Dog had written, and I was able to plug those onto pages and look at my gaps. So I could see not only where I needed to do the primary illustration for the coloring page, but also the secondary illustrations that I was using as filler for white space on a few pages. Because I didn't do that from the very beginning of the illustrations, I had illustrations that were formatted incorrectly to begin with. So I chose to do that book in 8.5 by 11, which is the size that I've done all of the coloring books in. And the reason for that is that it gives a fair amount of space for coloring, but also it's the least expensive size if you're talking in print-on-demand terms, because they don't have to cut it. The other sizes of books they're printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet and then cut down to size. And then that's an extra cost as far as printing goes. So the Task Force Chewini books are about 44 or 46 pages long. I'm not looking at the manuscript right now and I can't remember for sure. And they're completely black and white interior, and they cost $2.15 to print. And even for the author wholesale copy, once you factor in shipping and taxes, it's a little bit more than that, but it's pretty darn inexpensive to do that. And so for the coloring books, for the book that Jimmy Buys and I wrote together, the One Hungry Werewolf children's book, I'm liking that 8.5 by 11. The print quality is not spectacular. That's part of the print on demand. It's not really designed for illustration quality. And I found that when I had One Cute Moose done, and it was done in color, the print in that is really high quality. It's very nice, and I was very happy with that, but it is not cheap. That book, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while since I ordered copies of it, but I want to say it's about $6 for the author wholesale cost. And since I market it for $10, you can see there's not a lot of margin there. Not after Amazon takes their cut off of it. So the 8.5 by 11 for children's books, for coloring books, when when I get around to doing the cookbook, a coloring cookbook. No, I'm not doing a coloring cookbook. I could, but I'm not going to. But I will probably do the cookbook at an 8.5 by 11 size. Because I think it'll lay open better than a smaller book size. That trade paperbacks don't really want to lay open well, and when you're at the kitchen counter with a cookbook, you kind of want your book to lay open better. We'll see. The ideal there would be to do some kind of a spiral bound. Those can be done print on demand, but not... Actually, I guess that wouldn't be print on demand. Small run print. And I really don't want to have 1,000 copies of a book in this apartment. And they would have to be in the apartment because our storage unit is not climate controlled. And that's not good for books, despite the fact that I have books stored. So yeah, Affinity Publisher, highly recommended if you're going to be doing smaller projects. The problem that we ran into when we were trying to format a novel, well, to be specific, an anthology, the earlier anthology that we did, Adventure Stories for Young Readers. When we were trying to format that in Affinity Publisher, it does not flow text well. So it's spectacular for short pieces of text that you want to put in a framed space, as it were, like a page, and for images. And there are ways to work... Sorry, I'm going to respond to that comment in a minute. There are ways to work the text to actually flow around the image, which I think would be really fun to do, especially if you were doing, I don't know, poetry or something. So that's what triggered the Vellum purchase, was realizing that Affinity Publisher, to lay out a long-form piece of fiction, and I suspect a long-form piece of nonfiction, is not going to work terribly well. I've also been warned that if the longer the project in Affinity Publisher, the more pages, the more cumbersome the file gets. It gets really large, and it tends to slow the program down. So I have Vellum, and hopefully Vellum will work for me. Vellum will allow me to do a free trial, and you don't have to actually pay for it until you get to the point where you're ready to publish your project. And that's probably what I'll do to begin with. So if it's a crashing disaster, I can not. I don't know what I'd do with the Mac at that point. Have a little bitty travel computer, I guess. So, Mom, you were asked if I could do loose pages with holes punched and let people buy ring binders to put the pages in. No, not easily. There's actually a way that could be done, which would be to make the cookbook available as a PDF, let people print it themselves, hole punch it, and put it in a binder. And I have made the coloring books available as printable PDFs on my website. Not Task Force Shawini, because that one has a co-author, and I don't want to handle the royalties. But we could do that with the cookbook, depending on how we do the cookbook. If the cookbook works out as a collaborative project, I will also put that on PubShare and do royalty sharing that way as well. I hadn't planned for the cookbook to be a collaborative, but it looks like it's kind of going that way with what was going on in book club with Spikes. So for anyone listening that does not know what the book club with Spikes is, it is not a fan club. It is an actual book discussion club. I am not comfortable with the idea of having my own fan club at this point in my career.
She has one.
Yes, well, fan club of one, there. Book Club with Spikes is a Discord server. If anyone other than Mom is watching and wants a link to it, let me know. I can put a link under the YouTube video once it posts, but the link is only good for a week, so. What other topics was I going to cover this live stream? Oh yes, pineapples. I was going to talk about pineapples.
Tasty.
Yes. No, we had pork chops for dinner, and I did a quick and easy dinner because... So, among other things that have happened this week, I have raised the bar on dining room chairs at the apartment. I was informed by my son and my dear husband that the ladderback dining room chairs that we had are too straight-backed, and they hurt. So I was like, all right, what's going to work for you guys? And after some discussion on chair style, and this is a whole thing, I mean, my dear husband would like the old tubular and vinyl Formica table chairs from his childhood. Unfortunately, mid-century modern is now prime collectible and not cheap and not easy to find. So, moving on. What we wound up with was some mismatched Windsor-style chairs. They have been riding around in the back of my car for a few days because I picked them up and we had no place to put them. And today I had arranged for a grocery pickup curbside rather than going into the store because I didn't have time. And I realized that I couldn't just go there straight after work. I had to come home and get the chairs out of my car. And then I could go get the groceries.
Gave us a chance to ride together.
Yes, and that's the other thing that we've been doing this week is I have been dragging Sanford out on mundane little errands with me because that way I get a chance to spend time with him. I shared a quote on my social media. I've been reading Dorothy Grant's novel Blood, Oil, and Love. It's a reread. I know it's a recent release, but honest to God, the woman gets better with every book, and I am learning things reading it. I keep going back to them and finding new little bits and pieces. But anyhow, I shared a quote out of her book that quality time does not make up for quantity time. And right now I am getting all the quantity time with my husband that I can get, which includes dragging him out. Joshua says hi, Sanford. Which includes dragging him out to get groceries with me, or at least to sit in the Walmart parking lot while the gal loaded the groceries in the car for me. So, oh yes, he went and put the hat on just for you, Joshua. So, yeah, no, for dinner, I'm getting back to the pineapple, really I am. At some point early this week, we had gone grocery shopping. I have a teenage boy. We go grocery shopping more than once a week, usually. We just can't keep enough in the house. Too small. I'm still not getting to the pineapple. I will get to the pineapple, I promise. We have a deep pantry, but it's things like canned goods and dry beans and the stuff for baking whatnots. And that doesn't necessarily translate into things like fresh produce and meat and sprinkled chocolate donut holes because, boy. So we had gone out, and it was the three of us at that point, and my dear son trots up to the cart with a pineapple, a whole pineapple, and wants a pineapple. Now here's how this family breaks down. I will eat pineapple on pizza. My son will not eat pineapple on pizza. My husband will not eat pineapple on pizza. My son wants this pineapple because he wants me to grill said pineapple alongside pork chops. Sanford doesn't eat cooked pineapple. He had a traumatic experience with cooked pineapple as a child, and if the pineapple is warm, it is not going anywhere on his plate. So I took the pineapple and broke it down, and some of the pineapple was set aside raw, and some of it went on to the flat griddle with pork chops. It's very good that way. So, the pineapple was a lesson in how do I make everybody happy. And we still have some leftover pineapple, which I had thought, because I also made a Greek salad with dinner. So pork chops, pineapple, Greek salad, and tinned biscuits because, yeah. Koala, I also want a chocolate donut. Hopefully the boy hasn't eaten all of them. I'm going to snag one. So I was making Greek salad, and Greek salad around here is a couple of peeled sliced cucumbers, a bit of chopped tomato, roughly equivalent to the cucumbers, and feta cheese.
Lots of feta.
And maybe a little onion, depending. Today we had some pre-chopped green onion that needed juiced up, so that got tossed in there. And I normally do a lemon and olive oil and dried mint vinaigrette. And today I did not do that, which was a mistake. Raspberry vinaigrette does not work with Greek salad, just so you know.
It was okay, just wasn't as good.
But one of the things that I thought about doing was actually doing a fruit salad. And not like the fruit salad with whipped cream or whatever, or mayonnaise, God forbid. But I was actually thinking it would be fun to chop some of that pineapple up and toss it with the feta cheese. And maybe a little bit of tomato, but not the poor cucumber, because that cucumber would just be laying there under all those other flavors. Passing out because it's just too pale to keep up. But I didn't do that. One of these days, I may do. Because I think feta cheese and pineapple would probably work well together. It's always interesting to cook for the kids. And now we only have one, so it's slightly less complex. But for a long time we swore that we could not make anything that all 4 children would eat. And even when we only had 2 there for a little while, we couldn't make something that both of them would eat. There are days that we look forward to the empty nest just so that we know we can cook something we like and not have to worry about making something extra for the kids or telling them to make something extra, because they can. Well, Koala, I don't know how you guys' soil would be, but you might want to consider growing more food. I know you guys have chickens. Eggs are good. Eggs are lots of nice protein. Ooh, feta and pineapple on a homemade basil cracker thing. Yeah, that would work for me. I'd have to do something else for Mister because he doesn't do basil the way I do, but he's making faces at me, isn't he?
Oh, the only basil I like is basil raspone.
Ooh. I still don't remember what the third topic I said I was going to talk about. But talking about food is always good. Yeah, I need to make more flatbreads. I had gotten away from doing breads because I was doing low carb for so long. And I need to go back to doing flatbreads or just breads in general because I miss that. But then again, I don't know that I'm going to have time to cook like that. We're not house hunting. I'm not, I swear.
So
Yes,
says the lady keeps sending me pictures of houses that
I
are for
was just
sale.
going to say the people that I keep sending links of houses to are probably thinking I'm house hunting, but I'm not. I'm just looking at what's out there. For one thing, I think we might be starting to slide off the top of the housing bubble, but we're definitely not there yet, and I don't want to buy at the top of the bubble. I don't know if the housing bubble is going to burst or if we're just going to slide down into a trough. Um, but either way, I want to wait a little while to buy that, and we need to save up more money for decent down payment. The move and attendant nuisances were more expensive than we liked. So I'm not looking for houses. What I'm looking at is what's available, what consistent problems are in this area. It looks like foundations are an issue, which leads me to think that I need to find a house that has a foundation repair with a warranty, which is also a thing around here. So this is what I'm learning as I look at houses. Yeah, Stephen, I'm waiting for the first quarter recession. We're probably going to wait a little longer than that. I'm looking at waiting until the boy turns 18. So that's another year and a half. And I think at that point, we're going to see a lot of things shake out. So we'll see. And I mean, the rate that we save money towards a down payment is going to depend on whether or not Sanford is able to go back to work. If it's just my income, we will be able to save, but not as quickly. And this area is a lot more expensive than the area that we were in Ohio. We knew that coming in, and the salary that I'm making reflects that, based on I'm making quite a bit more than I was in Ohio. And I mean, I love my job, and we're not thrilled with the living in the city. But like, I found a house this morning poking at it that is at the far edge of my commute range. Although, here's the thing about a long commute and me, which is that I can do dictation on a long commute. Right now my commute is about 15 minutes of fairly heavy traffic and getting on and off roads. So I don't even drink coffee on my commute right now. But if I'm commuting for an hour and I have a decent headset and dictation set up, which I'll consult with Martin Shoemaker about doing, then I have dedicated writing time every day. That is actually what Martin Shoemaker was doing with his work. He was dictating during a very long commute. Now that he's working from home, he's got what he calls Dictation Trail, which is his treadmill setup, and he is getting himself into shape, which is a wonderful thing, and also dictating his work at the same time. So I had been doing dictation when I was commuting in Ohio, and my setup was not great, and there's still stuff that I dictated during that time that is such a dirty transcription that I haven't been able to do anything with it. So if we bought a house way out, I have coffee before driving and then after driving, just not during the drive because I got both hands on the wheel. City driving here in Texas is not fun. But this is why I'm talking about wanting to live outside the Metroplex and being willing to put up with losing a couple of hours a day to commute just so I can live out. Yeah, and yes, Mom, but looking at what's available closer to where I work, it's all suburb hell. It's just cheek by jowl houses and a little bit more expensive. I mean, if I'm looking further out like that, I can find less expensive houses. No, my job is not moving anywhere. We're talking about moving into a larger facility, but it will be within a mile of where I'm working now. Um, we do cosmetic manufacturing, so it's not as regulated and stringent as pharmaceutical manufacturing, but contrary to popular myth, cosmetic manufacturing is regulated. We are subject to inspection by not only the FDA but the Texas state regulatory commission. So, no thank you, Josh. I am not going to try city driving with a manual transmission, no power steering, and trying to eat with one hand at the same time. The only time I've ever driven without power steering, I pulled something in my sternum and I was sore for 2 weeks afterwards. I literally pulled ligaments loose. I've seen houses even in suburban Texas that have mature shade trees, and that would definitely be a thing I'm looking for. My ideal house would have a mature pecan tree. So what I was saying about the cosmetic manufacturing in my job is that we have to have a facility that meets a certain standard of space that will hold we need a water system that's special, and we have to be able to clean and sanitize, and we just have certain quality standards. So we're kind of limited. It's not like we can just grab space anywhere. And if I were able to earn my living writing, I would live happily anywhere, but probably not near you, Koala. I think New Mexico's on the list that my husband gave me of no. I'm not sure how well we do in the desert. I mean, the nice thing about where we are now is that there are actually trees in the Dallas area, and there's also some hills and valleys, and there are lakes. There are reservoirs, but there are lakes. So it's kind of a cross between where we were in Ohio and what you might find out further west. And I will admit that the further west I go, the more it feels like home, but that's me. Sanford hasn't lived out this far since he was much younger. He spent some time in Denver, Colorado, but that's also very different. It's okay. We're good. My job is not something that would allow me to work remotely or work from home part of the time, which would be nice. Yeah, north of you in the forests, the piney woods, bristlecone pines, yeah. I could do that. I'd love to travel more. I don't know when that's going to be able to happen. Right, and I mean that's what a lot of us are. We're tied by our jobs. If I could work remotely, and if Starlink works the way it's supposed to, then Joshua, I have seen pictures of sunset at your place. I did not see any trees. If I had worked remotely, if Starlink worked like it's supposed to work, I would live somewhere else, as far out as I could get. Although there's also criteria of we're coming to a phase in our life when being close to medical facilities is going to be important. Um, and we're also coming to a phase in our life where taking care of a large yard, um, livestock, big gardens, those are going to get less and less easy to do. And we're past the day and age where you had large families that all lived together and helped each other out. It's just not a thing we have anyway. I know that there are people that do here. You have one koala. Precious tree, treasure it. I enjoy all of the oaks around here. There's a certain shape to them that I just appreciate. I think it reminds me a little bit of parts of Oregon where I spent some time as a kid. I don't know. Sagebrush makes me happy, so what can I say? I think the only place I would not go and live again would be New England. I'm done with New England. Been there long enough, got out, not going back. And I mean, I am very happy to be as far west as we are, but I'm also loving the fact that just about 2 days ago now, it was 80 degrees and we were out sitting on the balcony relaxing and warm. Right now, I think it's like in the high 40s. And Sanford's arthritis has been pretty bad, so Ohio was making him miserable, and I'm really hoping that it's better down here. We're still going to have a winter, but it will be a short winter. I mean, even if we get the unpleasantness of the second great freeze, then we'll be able to deal with it. This apartment has a wood-burning fireplace, and Jim Curtis has offered me, he's got some firewood, he's offered for me to be able to take a couple of boxes of it and stash it here at the apartment, so in case of emergencies, we will be okay. I'm perfectly well aware of how to cook over a fireplace, so it's not ideal, and I wouldn't want to live in the apartment for a lengthy period of time, but for a couple of years we can do this. I keep telling myself that. If I say that a lot, it's because I'm trying to convince myself. I saw the picture of the shooting range, and that is awesome. And we have lived one place in the last several years where we could have had a shooting range, and we never had time to take advantage of it. We actually had a really steep hillside that we could have been firing into. Koala, there was a chimney sweep in, courtesy of the apartment complex. He showed me how to use the damper and told me that it was clean and ready to go. He said it looked like it hadn't been used since he looked at it last year. So I am comfortable with using the fireplace in case of an emergency. I probably won't outside of an emergency, just because of how we have the living area set up. I'm going to have to move furniture around to have a fire in it safely without scorching fabric. Oh good, Mom, I'm glad to hear you have a little stove. That will help your winter quite a lot. But so the other thing I had said I would talk about was Cheweenies. So Cheweenies is doing better than I had expected, actually. Ouch. Straighten up. The chair I have at this desk is not ideal for me sitting here and slumping. But Cheweenies is selling better than I had expected. We had a really nice initial day peak, and then we've been kind of having hills and valleys since then. And currently at a week out from release, we're at 129 copies sold. it is in paper only, and it's only going to be in paper because well, two things. One actually goes back to the formatting that I was talking about at the beginning of the live stream. I was not able to figure out how to format a flowable ebook and have that work with PubShare. PubShare only accepts 3 forms of upload, and none of them are the KDP file format for the flowable ebooks, which is what I used for the Cute Moose, and what you would see for, like, say, a graphic novel or a comic book. I was, however, hugely amused with the fact that Kindle couldn't figure out where to categorize Task Force Chewini, and so they put it into graphic novels. No, but okay. Koala, I can't do a gamer chair. This is actually a standing desk. It's actually an art desk with a drafting top, so it can be tilted, which is fantastic if I'm working on art on it, but I have it set up right now semi-permanently with my laptop and an extra monitor and the microphone, so I can do this kind of thing. That is a 50-inch TV, because for years Sanford had been teasing me that, and are you having trouble getting it turned on, honey? Oh, there you go. Sanford had been teasing me that he needed a 50-inch monitor. And so when we were in Ohio, I had found a 50-inch plasma TV used fairly inexpensively. And we bought that for Sanford. The problem is that it was incredibly heavy. It was actually, I think, a display from like a hotel or a sports bar or something. Great visual clearness and all that jazz. And you can use a TV for a computer monitor, no problem. But we left it in Ohio because Sanford was like, I'm not moving this thing. So the monitor, the TV that we had in the main area where the kids could watch TV and movies, when we moved into the apartment, I said, I'm not having any TV in the living area. The living area is going to have bookshelves, the fireplace, comfortable sitting chairs, the games, that's it. We're not doing a TV out there. So my son promptly decided that he was going to set up what had been the big TV that used to hang on the wall in Ohio as Sanford's monitor. And it's not ideal because Sanford doesn't really have the room to get away from it the way he did from the wall-mounted one in Ohio. And yes, next will be a projector on the wall. He's actually talked about doing a projection style on the ceiling so he can lay in bed and read. That's not happening. The 50-inch was a whim. I was more than happy to make that one come true. So yes, I'm a graphic novel artist now. Chewini's, I don't remember how many words that was. I'm going to spitball and say that it was maybe 1,500 words. Not even close to being novel. No, it's doing better than I expected, and I'm really happy because so when I started illustrating Task Force Chewini, it was because Law Dog's a friend, and he was being relentlessly cheerful, or his usual sarcastic, snarky self, to the public face. And when I saw him in person, I could see the stresses of stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And then Afghanistan happened. And that was rough for a lot of people. And I do my art every day, so I'm always looking for things to do for art. Speaking of which, I haven't done art yet today, so who knows what that's going to be. So I started to illustrate Law Dog's sit reps for the pups because they were fun and they really lent himself well to an illustration style. And when I posted them in my art groups or on my social media, I didn't necessarily connect them with Law Dog's sit reps because he's got his social media pretty tightly snugged down to friends for good and sufficient reasons. So I wasn't going to tag or any way tie the two of them together. However, we have a fair amount of mutual friends and they realized what I was doing. So then I started to get requests. And when someone walked up to me at FinCon and asked me when it was going to come out, I was like, and I didn't know this person. And I asked Law Dog, and he said he didn't know this person either, so neither of us have any idea how that one happened. So at that point, it was like, okay, I've got to turn this into a real thing. And it's funny because I waited till I could talk to him in person. And his reaction when I asked him was hilarious. It was just like, yeah, of course. So, but I also wanted to not make it, given that there's a lot of stress and stuff going on, I did not want Cheweenies to be one more thing on his plate. So the only thing I asked him to send me was a bio for himself and a bio for the dogs. So that's the original content in Task Force Cheweenie, are the very tongue-in-cheek and very funny bios for Chewie and Mochi. And with a little help from Law Dog's lady. If you read one of the bios and you see the sentence that includes something about chasing after crumbs, that's Law Dog's lady. And the quote, of course, from her about them being sweet little souls, which I found hilarious given the subject of the book and the theme of it. So it was a fun little project, and it wasn't a whole lot of extra labor for either of us. So the fact that it's selling well, and that I keep hearing from people that it made them laugh, and that they're planning on giving it as a gag gift, that tickles me so much. And seeing Law Dog's reaction to this that was fantastic. It was just great, and I'm so happy that I actually did this. And it's one of those things that, I don't know, sometimes I take on more than I should take on, and other times that's really rewarding to take on these crazy projects and go, okay, I'm gonna make this happen. It's like the anthology, Can't Go Home Again. I took that on because I was really passionate about the theme of it. And in fact, just before the live stream started, I was writing, I don't know if it's going to be a foreword or an afterword, as the editor for that anthology. The initial feedback I got from my first reader behind me is that it reads like the intro to a psychology textbook, so I probably need to put it after the stories, because they're not message fiction. They're therapeutic, but not medicinal, if that makes sense. I don't know that makes sense. I need to rewrite what I've written, probably, but I have got a lot of work to do today, and I will be finishing it up tomorrow, and I will hit the publish as soon as I can on it. But just so y'all know, it might be closer to Sunday than it is to Saturday. And very shortly thereafter, you should look for a long-form interview of myself and Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Denote, who's the catalyst for this anthology. His story that he sent to me And he'd asked if I'd be willing to publish it on my blog or the Mad Genius Club, and I had told him no. I didn't want to put it out there as a freebie. It's a fantastic story, and I asked him if he'd be willing to let me use it as a cornerstone for this anthology, and that's where this all started. I'm really looking forward to getting this project out there, but I also want to do it right, and I've got a couple of hiccups that are going to have to get ironed out. But late in the day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday at the absolute latest, I will start. I don't know. I will go to drastic measures if it goes that long, but it should be out this weekend, and at that point, I don't have any major commitments, and I'm not planning on taking anything else on for the rest of the year. I've splurged, and I bought myself some research material, several books, to do some research for a couple of projects that I'd like to continue to work on, but I am not going to take on any other major commitments for the rest of this year, and I'm going to keep doing my daily art, but it's just going to be whatever strikes my fancy, and I'm not going to make myself write. If I write, I write. I'll do the weekly prompts, but even that, because there's no word count there, might be a little, might be a lot, might not be anything at all. There's been a couple of weeks where I've seriously thought I'm not going to be able to do the weekly prompt. And even though I was the one that started that, there are other people that are invested in it enough that they can pick up that baton if I have to lay it down for a week. So now that Sanford is here, especially this coming week, oh Lord, this is part of the whole week thing. Johan was supposed to be flying down to see his sisters, and he was going to fly down. One of his sisters had a voucher with the airline, and so he was going to fly down and then take the train back. Well, we have been unable to get a photo ID for Johan because of a lost Social Security card. And he cannot fly without a photo ID. He can, however, take Amtrak without a photo ID. He just has have to have a responsible adult load him on the train and sign a waiver and show ID for him. So we are going to wind up driving him down, which is approximately 12 hours of driving, 10 or 12 hours. But then we have a few days off with just the two of us, and y'all can expect to not hear anything from me next week. I am very likely going to be shutting the computers off for a few days. I have been teasing my dear husband that I'm going to plan and execute a second honeymoon, which is a joke because we never had a first honeymoon. So it'll be a couple of weeks before I'm back again with this. And I'm not going to completely surf off for a while yet, because we won't have the kid delivered down there until Wednesday or Thursday. But then he doesn't come back until Tuesday, so we have a nice long weekend. So the train is going to take about 10 hours to get him from San Antonio to Fort Worth, which is not really a reasonable time, but teenager, he'll deal. Yes, I will check in. Even if I shut off the computer, I mean, we're not teenagers anymore. We'll have some downtime where we just want to sit and relax. Recuperate. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I've got a lot to do today, but once this is done, that's it for this year. And then I can just do little projects. And I don't know what my husband is watching back there, but that looks entertaining.
I don't know what it is either.
Well, Joshua, I really enjoy the fact that I get to interact with you guys. I have been debating moving to a platform here that would actually allow for me to have guests remotely, so that we could do more like a conversational style rather than me monologuing at the camera. Because as you all know, I've never been something I've been entirely comfortable doing. So yeah, no, unfortunately Sanford volunteered for that one. I was willing to do it, but I don't have Wednesday off. I have Thursday and Friday off. So I have a 4-day weekend. And if I spend 12 of that, it digs into our time. So Sanford fell on the grenade. Well, y'all, I have taken up an hour of your time monologuing at the camera. I will return in 2 weeks. And until then, be safe, be happy, give somebody near you a hug.